miserable in the end if you don't, but give them an opportunity to understand what the culture is. So if everybody's going out for dinner or drinks after work and they're not going, then find out why they're not able to go. Maybe they have a small child at home, or they're having some issues where they need to be home. But then when you see that they're having potlucks or lunches and they're there, but they're still not participating, then you find that there's something deeper. Thank you all for being here with me today to speak about two topics that are near and dear to my heart: emotional intelligence and culture. The reason that those two topics are near and dear to my heart is because they are so important to an organization. As Greg already said, my name is Nikki Pounds. I'm an HR consultant, and I've been in human resources for about 26 years. Every time I say that I've been in human resources for about 26 years, I get a little teary-eyed because that's so long. But I'm so proud of everything that I've been able to accomplish in my career, and I'm so happy that you guys have decided to allow me to be with you today. In EQ, some of them had a very low IQ in EQ. Some of them were good leaders. Some of them were not so good leaders. And I wanted to share this topic with you so that everybody could understand the importance of emotional intelligence and our responsibility as culture builders in our organizations. So I'll tell you a story. I had a leader one time at a company that I worked for, and I will not tell you that person's name to protect the innocent, but he thought he was the best leader in the world. He thought that his style was so inviting that people would come to him and talk to him about their personal lives, because he would ask. He'd ask about their personal life. How was your weekend? How are your kids? How's your dog? So he thought his style was so inviting. He thought that people respected him so much that they would just do whatever he asked. Whatever he said to do, they'd do it. If he said jump, they said how high, just like that. And he thought he was so funny. He'd tell jokes, people would laugh, giggle, smile, all of those things. And the operative word in that is he thought that he was so funny. The reality was he was not that inviting. He was not very friendly, and he was not very engaging or emotionally intelligent. And that may be because he didn't know what emotional intelligence is or the importance of it, or he just didn't care. He would come into my office and complain about employees and managers not respecting each other, not being honest with each other. And we had to do something about it. Those people couldn't continue in the organization like that, disrespecting each other, not being honest with each other, not being open. And the very thing that he was complaining about, he was doing it. So they were mirroring his behavior, and he didn't even realize it. People stopped eventually telling him about their personal lives and about their weekend. They just make something up because he'd use it against them later when he was upset. Not very emotionally intelligent at all. He thought that people were doing whatever he asked or whatever he told them to do because they respected him. But that was not the case. They did it out of fear. They were afraid that if they didn't do it, that they would lose their jobs. And his jokes weren't very funny at all. Not at all. He thought that those jokes were funny, but they really weren't. People knew, though, that if they didn't laugh and giggle and smile as he was telling those jokes, that they could be berated later on for not doing that. His emotional intelligence was very low. And he didn't realize it, or he didn't care. Not sure which. So what do you think the culture was like at that company? The culture wasn't honest. It wasn't inviting. It wasn't supportive. People came to work in fear because you didn't know what you were going to get that day. So he didn't build a culture that really could be lived every day for people to feel comfortable and be productive and be their best selves at work. Some scenarios around that. We will define culture. So what is culture? How EI impacts culture, or how emotional intelligence impacts culture. Emotional intelligence is all that touchy-feely stuff. That stuff, I don't get into that. I just want to come to work. I want to come to work and do my job, and I want to leave. So I can appreciate that. Has anybody ever felt like that? Where you wanted to just come to work and do your job? Yeah, and go home.
Yes.
I heard a yes up here. Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't necessarily work that way. We work with people, and people have emotions. People have feelings. So we cannot always just come to work and do our job and not interact with people. How are you dealing with that? If you are one of those people who would just like to come to work and you don't really want to do all that touchy-feely stuff, how are you dealing with that? So what is emotional intelligence, or EQ? So you see I have emotional intelligence and I have EQ in parentheses. Emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions and handle interpersonal relationships sensibly and empathetically. That is emotional intelligence. So I was certified through Multi Health Systems, or MHS, as an emotional intelligence administrator. And how we define emotional intelligence is by 5 scales and 15 subscales. Those 5 scales are basically characteristics, and we'll dig into that a little bit later. So emotional intelligence encompasses 5 scales or characteristics. EQ, on the other hand, is your emotional quotient. So EQ is emotional quotient. It is your level of emotional intelligence that's represented generally by a score on an assessment, like the ones that I administer. A kitty, a little sweet kitty, and he's looking in the mirror and thinking that he's a lion. So I'm sure that we know people like that, where they think that they are just fierce and they are the best thing since sliced bread, and it could be the opposite. It could be where on the outside they look in the mirror and they are a lion and they think that they're a kitty. Just like that, that boss that I told you guys about a little bit earlier today. So self-perception. Self-perception is how you see yourself when you look in the mirror. What is the reflection that you see in the mirror? It's self-regard, self-actualization, and self-awareness, emotional self-awareness. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? The second aspect of emotional intelligence is self-expression. So this is how you express yourself through your independence and through your assertiveness. Through your independence and through your assertiveness. It's how you express yourself emotionally. And I've given you guys handouts there. You can write a few notes. I have the main points there. But if you find something in there that catches you that you maybe didn't know or want to remember, feel free to write it down on the notes. So decision making. How do we make decisions? Do we just jump and make a decision without having all of the facts and information? Or can we even make a decision? I know that some of us know people in our work lives that just jump quick and make a decision. And they're like, I'll make a decision now. If it's wrong, it's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll fix it. And then some people who will not make a decision for fear of being wrong. There always has to be a balance. You have to make a decision for sure. But you want to try to get as much information as you can about what you're making a decision about, especially if it affects other people. And generally, when we're making a decision at work, it is going to affect other people. So that's the third aspect of emotional intelligence, our decision making, and how we process information, to make decisions. So interpersonal are our relationships, how we feel about our relationships, how we feel about social responsibility, our empathy. Does everybody know what empathy is? Kinda, a little bit maybe? So empathy is our ability to understand someone else's emotions and feelings. So in order to be highly emotionally intelligent, you have to understand and be able own feelings and emotions for sure, but also be able to understand and regulate the emotions of others, because it's a give and take, it's back and forth. You're not the only one in a conversation, you're not the only one at work, there are other people involved. And so we talk about the golden rule. Who's heard of the golden rule? So I'm asking questions because I'm a natural teacher, so I ask questions a lot. The golden rule is treat others how you would want to be treated, absolutely. But with emotional intelligence, we up that game to the platinum rule. So the platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated. How they want to be treated, because how I want to be treated may be totally different from how you want to be treated. What I can tolerate and accept may be, through the roof. But then you get frazzled by it. So I need to treat you how you want to be treated, not how I want to be treated. We have to respect each other. Again, it's about a balance. And then the last one would be stress management. So how do we handle stress? If a schedule changes, are we flexible enough to be able to relax and go with it? Or do we get completely stressed out with change? How we handle change and handle our emotions and stress is stress management, the last of the 5 aspects or characteristics of emotion. So EQ is responsible for 58% of our job performance. Because we interact with people, we influence people. So it doesn't mean that we are the CEO of the company. It doesn't mean that we are the president of the company. We're all responsible for culture and for how we treat each other in the organization. So basically what this means is our behavior as employees, as managers, and as leaders drives and shapes the culture, which then in turn drives the company's mission, vision, and values. So our behavior as employees, no matter what level, helps shape the culture and then drives the company's mission, vision, and values. We didn't write it. Maybe we had some input into it, but we're all responsible for living it every day. So that's 58% of our jobs. I always tell managers, when you are conducting a performance review at the end of the year, or if you have twice a year performance reviews, behavior is just as important as what you know. One of an inviting person, an engaging person, a cooperative person. Because what you know doesn't mean anything if no one wants to work with you. So 58% of your job performance is based on EQ. Okay, write this down. 90% of high performers are high in EQ. So people who develop their EQ tend to be more successful in their jobs than people who have a lower EQ. So you can for sure have a high performer with a low EQ, but the chances are slim. It's very slim. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question. When we go back up to the 5 skills,
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about self-perception,
Mm-hmm.
how does self-perception fit into that? Because you may see yourself as something different than other people see you.
Absolutely. So when you don't have a clear picture of who you are, then that absolutely impacts this negatively. Because you really need to know who you are. Like the story that I told you of my boss who thought he was engaging, he thought he was funny, he thought everybody liked him. That changed this whole perspective because he had no idea that people really were afraid of him. They didn't respect him in a good way. They respected him as the leader of the organization. They did what he asked them to do, but it was out of fear. And he thought it was because they just respected him. So that absolutely impacts your total EQ score, your emotional quotient. So I'll tell you about another manager of mine. I still keep in touch with him. I haven't worked with him in about 15 or 20 years. But this is the opposite story. He is highly emotionally intelligent. His father worked for him. He owned the company. His father worked for him. But when we were at work, his father would go into his office and ask questions. If we would ask his dad something about if we could have money for something or if we could implement a new idea, his dad would say, ask John. Go ask John. John was the owner of the company. His dad was there, but his dad respected him because he empowered us. He allowed us to do what we needed to do in our jobs within guidelines and within reason, of course, and keeping the integrity of the company at the forefront of our minds when we were making decisions. He engaged with us. He communicated with us. And communication it didn't mean that he was always speaking. It meant that he was listening. So what do you think we did every day? We showed up. We were happy to be there. We worked, absolutely. And we gave it 100% every single day. Every single day. His background was not in human resources. That's what he hired me for. But he allowed me to do what I needed to do and engage with me and allowed me to show him and teach him things that he did not know. So we showed up every day and we did what we needed to do for his company. We worked hard for him. Don't you wish you could have an organization where everybody came in happy? Everybody came in 100% willing to work and give their all every single day. We're all responsible for that. For sure, leadership helps drive the culture a little bit more. We live it every day. So when you have a leader who has high EQ, then that helps shape the organization. So we've talked a lot about EQ, emotional intelligence, EI, EQ. Now we're going to talk a little bit about culture. That's why I'm here, right? So how does emotional intelligence impact culture? So culture is the character and personality of your organization. It's what makes your business unique, and it is the sum of its values, traditions, beliefs, interactions, behaviors, and attitudes. Culture is not on a poster, written on a poster in your break room. Culture is not written on a poster when you walk into the business. Culture lives deep in the organization. It's how we interact with each other. It's how we engage with each other. So if culture lives deep within an organization, why do you think emotional intelligence is so important to an organization? I'll ask that again, and it's rhetorical, but I do want you to think about it. If culture lives deep within an organization, why do you think that emotional intelligence is so important to an organization? And how does emotional intelligence impact the organization? We've talked a lot about culture, we've talked a lot about emotional intelligence, but it is so important in our organizations. So why is workplace culture so important? Workplace culture is as important as your business strategy because your culture has to be open, honest, and well-defined, just like your business strategy. Your culture attracts talent. So if you have one that is positive, strong, and well-defined, then you're going to attract strong, positive, well-defined individuals. If your culture is engaging, then you're going to retain employees. So engagement and retention are a huge part of organizational culture. And I looked at a study not too long ago about turnover in an organization. Employers pay, on average, 33% of an employee's salary to replace that employee if they leave the company. And what does that do? Affect the bottom line. That's money out of all of our pockets. When an employee leaves, we have recruiting fees, we have training fees, we might have signing bonuses. There's a ramp-up period. So the person who left took all of that knowledge with them. So the 33% doesn't necessarily even capture everything else that you lose when an employee leaves your company. So culture is so important. because you want to engage and retain the talent that you do attract. Who's heard of Glassdoor? Yeah, Glassdoor. I like Glassdoor because Glassdoor gives you a peek inside of an organization, and it can either hurt or help your reputation. It's an app or a site where current and former employees can go to talk about the company. And if the culture is not one that is engaging and inviting, then they're gonna say that. If it's not fair, they're gonna say that. But if it is, they'll also say that. So it's really, really important that we have a culture that is positive, strong, and well-defined. Culture defines or impacts happiness and satisfaction. And when we have employees who are happy and satisfied in their workplace, this is a study by Deloitte and Touche or Deloitte, then they're more likely to be productive in the organization, be productive in getting their work done. Culture also impacts performance. So organizations with a stronger culture generally outperform their competitors financially and are generally more successful. So a strong culture attracts talent, positive, strong, well-defined talent. It's a part of engagement and retention. It's a happiness factor. And then it increases productivity. So what do you think happens when the opposite is true? When the opposite is true, then you're gonna have people who are not productive, who are not happy, who are not strong and well-defined in their roles, who are not engaged, and that will negatively impact the bottom line. How emotional intelligence impacts organizational culture. How emotional intelligence impacts organizational culture. That's the reason that we're here today. That's the reason that you guys brought me in to speak to you. So people are seen as the organization's biggest asset. People are seen as the organization's biggest asset. For sure, organizations have tools and technology to propel their companies forward, but they know that without people using those tools and technology, they're not going to propel forward but so far. They're not going to go forward faster. So people are absolutely the biggest asset of an organization. It is important to be intentional and focus on emotional intelligence because again, our behavior helps shape the culture and drives the organization's mission, vision, and values. So I attended a business meeting about a week and a half ago, and the topic was emotional intelligence. It's big right now, so I wanted to go hear what they had to say. I'm an expert in it. I wanted to go hear, maybe I could learn something different. So I attended this business meeting, and we talked about emotional intelligence and what we wanted to increase in our emotional intelligence, because the good news is that emotional intelligence can be increased with consistency, hard work, and dedication. You can increase your emotional intelligence. It doesn't have to just be, it's me, this is take it or leave it. You can change it. So this lady in the meeting was talking about, why can we not just come into work every day and do our job and go home? Why do I have to, as a manager, coddle all these people, babysit? I'm tired of that. We just need to come in and do our jobs. I had an employee who came to me on Monday. She was having a bad day, and I didn't have time for that. We just got there. I'm busy. Can I schedule empathy with you on Thursday at 10 o'clock? Because that's when I have time. I don't have time right now. No, lady, you cannot do that. You can't schedule empathy on Thursday at 10 o'clock. You've lost that employee for the entire week if you don't spend 5 or 10 minutes with that person and help them through that crisis. You've lost. So would you rather lose 5 or 10 minutes to help them through that crisis, or the entire week? Because Thursday at 10 o'clock is too late. The crisis is over. This is how emotional intelligence impacts the organization. If someone's had a bad weekend, Spend 5 or 10 minutes with them on Monday morning so that you have them there with you and engaged for the remainder of the week. They can be completely unproductive. You're going to pay them for those 40 hours, but they're thinking about that thing that happened to them that you didn't help them through as their manager, and they needed you. This is how emotional intelligence impacts an organization. To increase an employee's level of engagement, you have to spend time with them. When you spend time with them, and quality time, that's uninterrupted time. That's time when you are away from your desk, maybe in a conference room, with your cell phone off, not answering emails, not answering texts, but really spending time with that employee, engaging with them, showing empathy. You're increasing your emotional intelligence at that moment and building a culture of openness. You're building a culture where employees want to come to work. They will be happy when you spend time with them. And just think about if everybody did that. Everybody took time with the other person. The level of engagement in the organization is going to increase tremendously. If someone is having a bad day, spend 5 or 10 minutes with that person. Don't schedule the time on Thursday. If they're having a bad day on Monday, you've lost them for the entire week. At that moment, again, you're building a culture of caring and empathy where people want to engage and want to do the best work with you and for you. So I love this quote. These are my final words. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Wow.
That resonates with me, and I hope it resonates with you as well. I've seen organizations where people know everything, but they don't care about each other. And they're less productive than someone who cares but knows less, because it's a collaboration at that point. People learn from each other when they can be open and caring and honest. So I enjoyed my time with you today. Thank you so much for having me, and I'll stick around for a Q&A at the end. Thank you so much.